Good evening and welcome to Gunner Shot. Today we're going to talk of Pakistan and its return as the epicenter of terror. And to talk us through this, I have with me General Hasnain. Sir, good evening and 1 minute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sir, good evening and welcome to Gunner Shot once again.
Good evening, Jai
We are,
Hind, to all our viewers.
and at the outset, I'd like to thank you for coming and discussing this very important topic. And for all the viewers, I must tell you, he's written an exceptional article, one of his best articles on Pakistan. He's written today, and it's published in the Chanakya Forum. After this, I'll put the link on to that for all of you to see. Uh, it connects the past of Pakistan with the present, and it takes you a little into the future. It's a different kind of an article. So I would suggest that all of you read it. But having given this uh, introduction to his article, why are we doing this talk? We all know 3 days back, Jafar Express was hijacked, and it was a tactically a brilliant operation. Strategically, also, it's a brilliant operation because a lot of things have come into focus. And in my way of thinking, the operation is still ongoing because today the news is that the BLA have executed 214 Pakistan, captives or Pakistan army personnel whom they had taken. So this is a thing which is going to, the operation is still on. But beyond the operation, a lot of things are on, and that's one part of the story. The second part of the story is very recently the Global Terrorism Index came out with a ranking where Pakistan is the number 2 country with maximum terrorism in the world after Burkina Faso. It has its own implications. And part of that is the BLA, and the other part being the TTP. And a third part is what Pakistan has grown within. Now, it's a complicated thing. Like I said, it needs a past, it needs a present, and we need to look in the future. And that is why I thought there's no one better than General Hasnain to explain this to us. Sir, all yours, please take on.
Thank you, General Shankar, and thank you for revisiting our favorite area for analysis. Pakistan has always been, some people call it our obsession, a lot of people call it my obsession. Nothing of that sort. It's just that it gives you tremendous scope to be able to discuss professionally the various issues which are afflicting Pakistan. No, what has happened is that ever since the line of control has been quiet since 24th of February 2021, and Jammu sector also has quietened down at the moment. The focus from the Western Front, from Kashmir, from Pakistan, has come down, and a lot of attention went to Bangladesh, to the northeast, and well, that is happens. It always happens in the world of geopolitics. There are competing areas of focus at all times, but obviously this area had lost focus. What has happened 3 days ago, 4 days ago, I call it Pakistan's October the 7th, right? I have these 2 articles which I've written. I started my first article with this particular aspect. This is Pakistan's October the 7th. What happened on October the 7th? Let me remind you. 2023, you found 1,200 people dying on the Gaza-Israeli border when almost 5,000 Hamas terrorists managed to get together almost without any kind of a surveillance over them, and they managed to break through a full fencing and almost raid and assault a festival which was going on, a music festival which was going on, and 1,200 people were killed. Over about 250 people were taken hostages. Thereafter, the war started. You found that's for the trigger for the war, and Gaza has been virtually razed to the ground. Israel mobilized almost about 350,000 troops. This war took them to the north against the Hezbollah, against Iran. So they were fighting on multiple fronts against the Houthis. This kind of an event, the one which happened on October 7th, obviously has the scope to be able to light a fire in a complete region. Now, when I draw this analogy of this event in Pakistan being something like October the 7th, is it going to light the fire in this region? That's the worry which I have in my mind. I also may mention in this article that I expected something to happen in Pakistan. Now, what is the reason for that? I felt that particularly in the last 40 days, or couple of, almost more than 40 days now, 45, 50 days, ever since Trump 2.0 has come, and you're finding a turbulent geopolitical environment in the world, completely being taken apart. The world of terrorism, terrorists also demand their own space. And this is exactly what is happening. They want to show their relevance. The IS, Islamic State, would attempt to do something in the Middle East or wherever they can find a space to do it. Right. Now, here, the BLA is not classically a terrorist organization, at least the way we look at it. We go by that famous UN dictum, one man's freedom fighters, another man's terrorists. We don't call them terrorists as such, right? But I expected that something of this nature will happen in the world of terror. Some organization will do something big to bring about the world attention to it. Pakistan is obviously one of the prime candidates for a thing like this. Now, what is the Pakistani environment which invites this kind of an assessment from me? If you remember, the Baluch Liberation Army, the BLA, and Balochistan separatism and insurgency has gone on for the better part since 1948. It has gone on. It's gone on in various parts, segments, 4 or 5 segments. The last time it really took off was in 2005 when Nawab Akbar Bukti was assassinated on the orders of Pervez Musharraf. And then since then, there has been no looking back. But it's been, to my mind, it's still been largely transactional. Not completely transformational, not to that extent where it is over the top, such that it invites complete attention from the Pakistan security forces and the establishment. Now, certain events in the world of terrorism invite that kind of a thing. Now, what happened with 9/11? You saw 9/11 invited the whole war in Afghanistan, right? You saw what happened on the 16th of December. I mean, just reminding you of some of the dates. 16th of December 2014, a red letter day. That was the attack on the Pakistan Army's Army Public School at Peshawar, where 142, 145 people died. 132 of them were children, some staff, etc. That really got the goat of the Pakistan Army. Operation Zarb-e-Azb had already been launched. It was re-energized, the entire thing. It went on for the better part of 4 years. We also had an operation called Operation Radul Fasad, which went after all the sleeper agents, the various networks, etc., of different terrorist organizations all over Pakistan. Now, the characteristic thing about all this which was happening in Pakistan was the fact that they followed a doctrine of what is called the good terrorist and the bad terrorist. So the good terrorists were those who were state-sponsored, who looked after the state interests, and were primarily transnational. They were essentially for Jammu and Kashmir, but they could be used also on the Afghanistan front if required. The Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed have all got sanctuaries in northern Afghanistan, the same famous area where the IS and other agencies, other organizations have got their sanctuaries. So, having said this, it was the Pakistan dictum the doctrine simply was trying to balance it out between the good and the bad terrorists. The good, as I told you, were all these terrorists, basically Punjab-based, and the bad terrorists were all those who were fighting against Pakistan, especially after 2007, the famous raid on the Lal Masjid. The Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan was the prime organization, so also having a deep relationship with the Afghan Taliban. Then there was the Lashkar-e-Jhangvi. Then there were typical, many of them anti-Shia organizations all over Pakistan, and all of them were targeted by this operation uh, Zarb-e-Azb. And the Pakistan army actually, to my mind, achieved fairly good results in that 4 years. What did they deploy? One third of the Pakistan Army's infantry formations were deployed on this. They deployed the FC, the Frontier Constabulary. They employed them also, 118 wings. Out of them, they extracted a lot of troops. So they were committed. The Pakistani security forces were completely committed to this. They had to pull out troops, even from Kashmir, to do this. Now, this is an important aspect to remember. Now, the BLA, which was also targeted under all these operations, somehow never managed to take their operations to that level, except the fact that they targeted the China-Pakistan economic corridor. Now, that was a very important aspect. And it was the Chinese were getting worried by that. The port of Gwadar, they would strike at the port of Gwadar, they would strike at various other facilities that the Chinese had set up, various projects that they were undertaking in Baluchistan and other areas, and the Pakistan army could not really protect them. Now, so keeping all this in mind, out of the blue, suddenly you find 4 days ago, I think it was on Thursday that it happened, out of the blue, suddenly you find that an operation has taken place in which a very, very novel, innovative method has been used of hijacking a train, something which has been done in the past. It's happened in Pakistan too, but not so effectively. Now, here they chose it in terms of a location where there was a tunnel, the train entering the tunnel, and thereafter being taken over, service personnel being taken out, separated, most of the civilians and innocents being taken away and released. Attempts by the Pakistan Army, ham-handed attempts of the Pakistan Army to carry out a rescue act, and then a complete battle of narratives which has gone on since then. As expected, in the modern world today, the moment an event of this nature happens, the first casualty is the truth. It's a world of information. There's information in everyone's hands, and there's information and disinformation which is flowing everywhere. Right? The Pakistan Army has been sort of projecting itself as holier than thou. That we are the ones, see, professionally, we've gone in with drones and with helicopters and things like that, and our special forces have gone and killed 30 BLA personnel, etc. And we just had 4 or 10 casualties, and the rest people have been released. That's what they expect the whole world to clap for them. But now we realize, that General Shankar was just telling you, that the news coming in is that no, that's not true. This train happens to be once a week, the Jafar Express. Goes from Quetta, and Quetta is the location of headquarter 12 Corps, the location of 2 divisions also. It's also the location of the very famous iconic staff college. I call it iconic because that's the original staff college where the British Indian Army Staff College used to be held. It's only after independence, partition, that our portion of the staff college came to Wellington. Got inaugurated on 19th of August 1948. But those buildings and that institution still remains there at the Pakistan Army's or Pakistan Defense Services Staff College. Now, people from there obviously travel on this train once a week. The Punjabi element coming to Lahore, coming to Rawalpindi, those who are the Pathan element going all the way to Peshawar, all of them will probably wait for a week, and they are the ones who travel on this. We are mid-Ramzan at the moment. In Ramzan, in Pakistan in particular, lots of people go on leave this time. A leave opens up, you have a little higher percentage of leave which is sanctioned. and therefore you find a lot of service personnel going. So obviously the BLA has done its homework. It's looked at it. I mean, to carry out a terrorist act in Pakistan, you'll find maximum terrorist acts have actually taken place in Ramzan. If someone actually does a survey on it, you'll find major actions have taken place in Ramzan. That's the time when the surveillance is down, when the guard is down. A lot of people are traveling up and down, and that is how they decided to probably select this target. Hats off to the BLA for its handiwork, for its planning efforts, etc., and for the manner in which it has gone in and done this. The Majid Brigade, which is the suicide element of the BLA, has undertaken this entire operation. Now, what is the implication of this? That's the last part. Before we go into a bit of a discussion, and John Shankar gives his opinion on various aspects that I brought out, and besides additional information, what are the implications of all this? Pakistan seems to be, to my mind, failing. Pakistan army seems to be failing on all fronts. Start from Bangladesh. You've seen a failed coup, an attempt to try and overthrow the Bangladesh army chief. Timely intervention, etc. The perpetrators have been arrested, and the coup has been stalled for the moment. All those efforts of the ISI to travel to Bangladesh, re-establish its hold there, get its sleeper agents into place, looking at making ingress into our northeast, hopefully at the moment is stalled for some time. You come back to inside Pakistan, see the Afghan front. Durand line is active. There's lots of firing across which is going on. You see the Khurram area which was virtually taken over by terrorists, and you found that no one could even travel there. Lots of relief and aid which was going in there was raided, it was burnt down. So the writ of the state in most of these areas is highly suspect. On top of that, you have had over a period of time, and the threat always remains of various elements trying to take over Rawalpindi, Islamabad, paralyze the government there, paralyze movement there, and then on top of that, you have this action which has happened now, which has come on top of the various actions which have taken place in Balochistan over a period of time against Chinese, against Pakistani targets. So obviously the things are Pakistan is in the throes of internal turbulence, and it has got options. The Pakistan army may turn around and decide to do a Zarbe-Az 2, or whatever it be. They will be forced to carry out something now. And this is not a normal era in which you can just pick up a weapon and start firing it. We are in a very awkward era, Trump 2.0, where turbulence around the world, there's a geopolitical realignment of forces which is taking place. The world order is in absolute flux at the moment. We don't know which state, which country is going to respond and react to what is happening at the moment. So there are lots of implications for us on the line of control, in Kashmir itself, spectacular acts. Obviously, the message going home is by October the 7th, and what has happened now with the BLA and what happened earlier on 16th of December 2014, this is a spectacular act which gets you dividends. Now, that is what scares the hell out of me. I don't want a spectacular act on my land, on my ground, in my country. And this is something that we have to be very careful about. Because we are a large country, we're a disparate country. Our intelligence agencies are very, very good. They've kept us safe for many, many years. But this is what should worry us all, and we should be looking at how can the common citizen assist the state in securing all our assets and securing ourselves. I'll rest here and I'll leave it to John Shankar now to take it on.
Yes, I think you made some very interesting points that this is, Pakistan's October 7 landmark event with a lot of repercussions. Well, just to put things in perspective, which I did last time also. See, we'll first talk of BLA and then go to the rest of the issues. As far as the BLA is concerned and the Pak army is concerned, at this point of time, it's very clear that the BLA owns the night in Balochistan. And the Pak army and its complete armed forces, whatever FC, Levies, whatever it is, they are not operating at night. And this is not told by anyone, but by Baluch politicians who say, look, the night control is out of the state. And the large tracts of Balochistan, which are not within the control of the state, that was admitted by Fazlur Rahman in the assembly itself. So that's a situation which is quite new. And traditionally, if you see, the Pakistan army has carried out all its exercises in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Waziristan, and all that, but not in Balochistan. In Balochistan, they used to do kidnapping and murder and things like that. It was more. It was never. They never approached it from this point of view. That's the first part. The second part is that they're facing three diverse, movements in Balochistan. First is the BLA, which is fighting for independence. That's their very clear aim. Okay, we want independence. We want separate Baloch state. The second is Marang Baloch's movement, which says we want rights, human rights, but she's within the constitution. She's still asking for everything within the constitution of Pakistan. The third is this movement called Gwadar Ka Hakdo, which is basically for people of Gwadar and against Chinese, so that their fishing rights and they can partake in the benefits of the CPC and all. That's also within the constitution of Pakistan. The problem with the Pakistan army is they have conflated all these three as against the Pakistani state, and that is being backed by India, and hence they have to react. I mean, they might at this point of time say, no, no, nothing happened. They might even wish away these 200 people who are dead as per news or not, whatever. Like I said, this operation is still ongoing in many ways. So we don't know and how Pakistan will react. If it reacts, there's an issue. If it doesn't react, there's an issue. That's the way I look at it, sir. Uh, if it reacts, there's going to be a lot of turbulence because there is also an established link between the TTP and the BLA. So Pakistan can't just react against the BLA and keep quiet. It has to react against the TTP. So the question is, does Pakistan army have the staying power to do this? After all, it costs money, and they don't have that kind of a thing. That's one part of the story. Now, if it does, what will be the repercussions for Pakistan? If it doesn't, what will be the repercussions for Pakistan? And depending on whatever the repercussions for Pakistan are, we'll have to see what is it for us. So first, sir, I'd like your views on the first part. What will Pakistan do? If it fails, what will happen? If it succeeds, what will happen? You're muted, sir.
I think you put it together in perspective very well. Let's get to the meat of it. I'm doing it like an intelligence appreciation. What would I do? What would I do if I was in Pakistan? I would be hugely frustrated by the information coming into me in GHQ. If I was the GMO, I would be hugely frustrated. And my advice to the chief would be, we have to do something. We have to be seen to be proactive. The Pakistan army has a reputation in Pakistan. Well, that reputation has been destroyed to quite an extent, of course, over a period of time. But it has got a reputation of being fairly professional. And it is expected that for something which has happened like this, right? When Peshawar, when the Army Public School got targeted, that was an army facility which got targeted. Here again, it is the army, it is the security forces which have been targeted. So obviously, if it was anyone else, if it was anything else, if it was a convoy of transporters bringing it and something happened, this kind of a response wouldn't have been there. But it has hit the psyche of the Pakistan army, its reputation within Pakistan. And it will, therefore, to my mind, it will probably respond. It may respond not in a huge way, not in the manner in which Israel responded right at the beginning. Israel responded massively, right? Um, there was an immediate mobilization, the Northern Front, and this and that. I don't expect that kind of a thing will happen here because I'm sure the Pakistani army would also realize, the DGMO would himself realize anything huge here is going to convey a lot of signals around the region. And this is not the kind of area where you can risk that kind of a thing. This is a nuclear armed area, region. You've already created so much of sensitivity in Kashmir. You have created sensitivity in the Jammu region out there. Obviously, India is going to be looking at this with a tremendous focus. So, whatever you do, do it in a more surgical way, small but effective. That is what they will want to do against the BLA. I'm not going to go into specific type of military operations, but yes, some intelligence operations they will carry out. These will have to be intelligence generated operations, not a generic operation. The moment the army steps into generic operations, cordon and search and destroy kind of operations, you are now leading yourself into a trap. And anyone who's been in a CICT for long enough will tell you are being led into a trap, right? Don't fall for that trap. The Pakistan army, to my mind, may fall for that trap, but would, if they were professional enough, should not fall for it. Because what will happen is they will gun down a number of terrorists here, a number of terrorists here, but the larger objective of finding peace, of bringing them to the table and negotiating something, etc., which of course does not enter into the Pakistani army's mind usually, you will find that that will go away completely. It's a population which is restive. It's a population which is hugely nationalistic, in the sense sub-nationalistic. I won't say it's nationalistic. It is hugely sub-nationalistic. We are seeing all their people appearing on the television channels, sitting in London or some place or the other. They've got a diaspora which is effectively networked around the world. They are going to raise up the human rights issues. They're going to raise up funding, all kinds of things. This movement is not going anywhere. This movement is going to only multiply, to my mind. That is what the Pakistan army has to be careful about, to understand that you cannot militarily subjugate and think that you can just remove the problem from here. You can control it to an extent, bring down the level of terror, so-called terror, bring it down, and then hope like hell to be able to reach out. Now, this is one aspect I want to definitely comment upon. The Pakistan Army's doctrine on CICT operation. I've not read their doctrine as such. But I know over a period of time, the operations against the TTP, against the Lashkar-e-Jahangir, and all these kind of organizations which have gone on against in Karachi, handling Karachi and all these operations, they have never ever looked at that balance. Look at India. Look at the manner in which we have conducted our operations in Jammu and Kashmir and the Northeast, right? We went in hard everywhere. We did our initial part. We controlled things, used hard violence. But even in the beginning itself, we were always softening it. This principle of, very famous principle of the fist in a, the steel fist in an iron fist in a velvet glove.
Velvet gloves.
But it has always been there. Reiterated by General J.J. Singh in 2004, 2005, when he became the chief. He reiterated the whole thing and took it back again. I took it up in 2010 in a huge way and said that what we were doing in 1989 in terms of hard power operations cannot be done in 2010. So we balanced it out to 50-50, soft power, hard power. I've never heard these terminologies. I've never heard of a Sadbhavna in Pakistan Army. The Pakistan Army is very macho, extremely macho. But macho-ness in this... Yeah,
If I may say, Pakistan army wants to do Sadbhavna for itself. Not for
yeah, that is true. They normally do Sadbhavna for themselves. So
themselves.
you never hear of these things. The outreach to the people, psychological operations. Have you ever heard of this? I mean, we have gone overboard, and I hope the people of Kashmir are looking at this. And just comparing the situation in Pakistan, in Balochistan, to the situation in Kashmir. How did we handle Kashmir? I mean, our outreach was something amazing. Absolutely. And the same thing in the Northeast. The manner in which we have been able to resolve the red corridor from 220 districts reduced down to a couple of districts now, where the problem is a little more than the usual. So, my sincere advice to the Pakistan Army: take on board a few advisors from the Indian Army. They are people who can give you far better advice. And
They should give you a
adopt the
special
Indian
pass
doctrine.
visas. They should give you a special visa and invitation.
Adopt the Indian model. That's what I'm only recommending to them. Adopt the Indian model. When the Indian Army went to Somalia, and we were part of UNOSOM, a lot of people were wondering, what is the Indian Army doing digging wells and setting up schools? Who's asked you to set up schools? I said, we do it. We do it wherever we go in there's an insurgency area. And slowly you found everyone coming and looking at what the Indian Army was doing. And they found this is the way it should be done. I did it in Rwanda. I remember I introduced the whole concept of winning hearts and minds in Rwanda. Now, these are the kind of things which I want to recommend, and I want to tell our own people, you should be very proud. We should feel very proud. You have a set of armed forces who have helped you to resolve, contain, stabilize. Terrorism is not defeated physically, it is defeated in the mind in this manner. Pakistan, I'm sorry, with the way it is going, the way things are going, I don't think that these issues are going to be resolved in a hurry. Yeah.
Yes, I think you made a very strong case, but let me put something which I picked up from what you said. You see, so you made a comparison with the APS incident, and for that matter, even the Lal Masjid incident and this October's, the Jafar Express thing. If you see the difference, this is the way I look at it. When the APS incident happened, children died. I think entire Pakistan was behind the army
Yeah.
to carry out action against the TTP. I don't see that kind of national fervor behind the Pakistan army now. That's the big difference I see in the state of Pakistan, the thinking of Pakistan. Somewhere Pakistan knows that they've ill-treated the Baluch for the past 75 years. And now the
Very good.
Baluch are,
Very good point.
I think that is something which is very significant in this whole story. The second thing, like you said, Pakistan really doesn't know how to handle CICT the way it is supposed to be handled. They have a doctrine. They have a doctrine which is maximum force. After all, the first thing, even in this, they've got gunships and drones and all that. And even against Afghanistan, they've gone cross-border, used their attack captors and things like that. So they believe in maximum force, and that's not going to work in this place. One. Number two, like you rightly said, this is a single railway track from, say, the main line to Quetta, which goes through, whichever you come from, it's offshoot from the main line. You can't guard this completely. I mean, we know how difficult it is to guard a line of communication and to all that. I don't understand whether they'll be able to handle. The third part of the story, sir, is this: the BLA is very well organized now. You see, unlike TTP, which has probably doesn't have the support of the people. If you see in KP, the TTP doesn't have the support of the people fully, and that is why there's an alternate movement in PTM, the Pashtun Force movement of Manzoor Pashtun. So they are competing. There's a violent movement there, there's a non-violent movement there. Pakistan has chosen to close down the non-violent movement and allowed this violent movement to continue. It's a different story. But here, the people, it appears, I won't say appears, I'm very confident, are with the BLA. So in this kind of a construct, I feel that and of course, Pakistan army has already started blaming the Indian India for helping all this out. So one is there's going to be a lot of ruckus in Balochistan, which will happen, and Pakistan army, I think, I'm afraid, will have to buy a lot of you know casualties here on. And I don't know whether they have that kind of a soft power, like you said. In fact, like you rightly said, they have no soft power to handle this insurgency. In which case, where does Pakistan go? And how do we react in this, story? That's the thing which I think we need to focus on. You could take it in two parts.
Yes. Let me just. I think you again put it together very well and raised some very relevant questions. The people's domain, as I call it, CICT operations has a people's domain, which is equally important as the armed, the response or the forces domain as such. In this case, very rightly said, I think we can kill that issue that Pakistan's doctrine somehow doesn't bring this out clearly enough. They don't have it in their understanding. It's not an easy thing, let me tell you. It was not in our understanding either. Quite
Yeah, in
some
the
time
beginning, we didn't
not
have
in
it,
our
sir. We
understanding.
didn't have
Yeah,
it. We didn't
we've
even
had,
understand it.
yes, we had to
We
fight our
learned it.
own system. We had to
We
fight our
learned
own.
it in IPKF. We learned this
Absolutely.
hard
We
thing in
started from
IPKF.
IPKF to start, and even before, perhaps in Nagaland to some extent, where it was done, and we have followed this principle to the T completely. So that is one aspect which needs to be seen. Second thing, you brought up this very important point. In the last 2 days, the Pakistan Army has been attempting to enter into this area to conduct operations by surface troops, ground troops, right? I'm not sure whether they use heliborne troops at all so far, but surface troops have not been able to reach that place. There are ambushes which are all over the place at the moment. So, the PLA is obviously very well organized. I mean, far more than what one can even appreciate a force of this nature. And I mean, the population of the Baluchis in Pakistan, some say 6%. My information says 14% of the total population. That is minuscule compared to the overall population. So there are large tracts of territory in Balochistan, in the desert, etc., where there is no population. So I think they've chosen their ground very well. They've selected their ground extremely well. The Pakistan Army will have to do much more homework and perhaps use much more technology to be able to access these areas, come to know where hideouts are, etc. If they have to conduct serious operations, if they think that a Zarbe as simple Zarbe as kind of operation can go in with search and destroy, no, it can't happen like that. The other aspect, I'll try to remind you of an Indian parallel. I was just discussing with General Hardy Lider, ex-GOC Romeo Force, whose book on the Operation Sarp Vinash will,
Sarpanash, yes.
will be released on 21st of April. It's going to be a very good book because I have read it since I've been invited to write the foreword of that. So, wonderful book which will explain a lot of things about why things are happening in Jammu, etc., and how operations were done in the past. Now, clearly in Hilkaka, for example, it said that the terrorists, 350 terrorists who were there, had occupied the fringes towards Punch to ensure that when from Surankot and Punch, when the search forces of the RR went up, they were fired upon by sniping elements from all over, and they could make no access to those areas. So, leave alone address an area, even entering into an area becomes a huge challenge, and that's the problem that they're going to face in Balochistan in the near future. The other aspect I just want to also highlight is this aspect of copycat terrorism. You see, most terrorist acts are repeat in some form or the other. Now, you see, what has happened is the spectacular aspect of it comes out from October the 7th, also comes out of the APS experience, right? They see that enormity of it. A issue must be thrown up to an extent where it becomes enormous, right? But it should not yet cross the hump. This is exactly what happened in Pulwama, for example. Pakistan had planned something, but it went over the hump, and then you had a response immediately. They were trying to keep it below the threshold of tolerance, so to say. When you look at this proxy war aspects. Here again, the BLA, I'm not sure whether the BLA wanted it to go over the hump. I think, to my mind, they definitely wanted it to go over the hump. They wanted to show their capability and their strength, etc., and sort of challenge the Pakistan army and the Pakistan security forces that if whether they can take them on at all. So if that be so, Pakistan and the fact that they are accusing India, now that is a very important aspect, that they are accusing India of complicity in this. So far, they have said it reasonably quietly, not so loudly so far. They are going to go bonkers on
But they will
stating
have
this.
to.
Yeah, they will state this hugely to the world, right? They will try and change opinion in America. They will try and change opinion in Europe and all that to say that it is all being sponsored by India. We have to be ready with our counters on this, and from a diplomatic angle. That has to be very, very well understood. There has to be a very close sync between our military understanding and our diplomatic understanding of the situation inside Pakistan at this time. The ISPR, which is supposed to be a highly professional organization, has proved to be an utter failure in this particular case. I don't know how they will handle this in the future. The ISPR is expert in trying to point fingers at India. But what they should be doing is trying to do psychological warfare with the population which is up against them. That they are not adept at all. They have not even attempted to do it, right? So these are some of the failings which are there. And I can only foresee that Zarbe has lasted for 4 years. This operation may, if this involvement may last much longer, is going to emasculate the Pakistan armed forces to a very great extent. I was just reading yesterday, Pakistan may be clapping, the Pakistanis may be clapping. They're expecting a 3% growth rate this year. 3%. They're expecting it. With the loans lined up 7% and things like the 7 billion loan, etc., most of it going into debt servicing as such. They're not really in a position to spend too much on all this. Although we are aware that Pakistan has got enough parallel funds running, black funds,
Economies.
drug funds, enough funds running to be able to finance these kind of operations. So I suppose much of the funding for this kind of an operation will come through that route of funding. I'll stop there.
Fine. Now, now the thing, sir, is okay, fine. They will carry out operations and all that. But there's a complicator in this whole story. And that complicator is China,
Yes.
Gwadar, CPEC. Now, I will get back to that original thing. See, like I said, there are three movements in Balochistan. Two are within the constitution, but they have gone to a level like Marang Baloch is being even being spoken of as being nominated for the Nobel Prize for Peace and all that. So she's got her international
Yes.
stature already. You have Gwadar Ka Haq Do. These get conflated, and they are going to affect China because all three are against China. All three of these movements are against China. As it is, that Gwadar port is not taking off anywhere. And uh, they've inaugurated a airport, the Gwadar airport, remotely. You see, sir, this is a thing. You know, when 2 months back, Shahbaz Sharif and Li Chang, the Prime Minister of China, they inaugurated this airport remotely in Gwadar from Islamabad. And it is well known now that the first language in this airport is Chinese. So there are huge repercussions for this area. Whatever happens here, and there's also talk because the PLA Central Military Commission Vice Chief, he came 2 months back, I think, and spoke with Asim Munir and all that. And they were negotiating to deploy private security contractors of China to be deployed like they have deployed elsewhere in other parts of the world. That means effectively Chinese boots on the ground. So in this kind of a situation, how do you see this complication playing out? And how do we think we should handle it from here?
Part of this I spoke in a
Yeah.
in a show with Barkhadatta the other day also, where I did mention that the more the security forces you um, place into Balochistan, the greater are the targets that you're going to be offering also, right? And the more and more the Chinese involvement here, if you bring in Chinese, if the PLA comes in here and establishes itself to sort of protect the CPEC, I don't expect that to happen. But if that ever happens, they will become the biggest targets themselves with alien territory completely. You can't
Yeah, yeah, completely.
you can't send me with the Indian army into the Sahara Desert and expect that I will be able to do a counterinsurgency there or secure myself there. No, you can't do it. It's all virtually impossible, right? So I don't think the PLA is going to come here, although they'll be there. That is why the pressure on the Pakistan army is going to be far, far higher, right? And the Chinese are going to obviously demand their pound of flesh for it. Remember also this argument on the deployment. 11,000 troops were placed by the PLA to defend the China-Pakistan economic corridor in the area of Gilgit-Baltistan. Now that's out of sight, out of mind area. That's not anything from where any news comes out as such. Even when there are agitations there, it takes weeks for the information to flow out from there, right? So those areas the PLA is occupying and is there. Well, in fact, we have seen PLA troops coming and visiting some of the posts on the line of control in terms of military tourism as such. But to place them in Balochistan, to my mind, any military mind in the PLA will desist from doing it. So it's going to be a Pakistan army show. They will secure it, they will protect it, and in the bargain, they're going to place more troops and invite many more operations. I think this is one of the purposes of what the BLA has done actually, to invite more and more targets inside. Right? Uh, I don't know how the Pakistan army is going to involve itself with air power. And that's a very interesting aspect. Air power, artillery. Right? Here also, in the case of this incident, drones have been brought in. Okay, drones is okay.
No,
Armored
drones is.
drones is fine. There's no drones are in the sense unless they're armed drones. These are not really armed drones as such here. These were more surveillance drones flying around to get more and more information and nothing more than that. But what the Pakistan army did in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa was actually the use of gunships, the use of armed helicopters, the use of tanks, ICVs, artillery, laying bare villages completely and making sure that there was no logistics left, there was no sustenance left, so the TTP would not have anything to sustain itself with. If you start doing that scorched earth kind of a thing inside Balochistan, what is going to be the effect of that? I'm not sure, because the world, as you are saying that, the Trump administration is, whether it's concerned about these kind of things happening in way off places, small places, etc. It's been the United States. It's been the champion of human rights, the champion of small states, small struggles going on here and there. And now with the kind of leadership that you have in the United States, I don't think much will come out of it. The
Yeah,
opposite
not like
could also the opposite could also happen. We don't know.
they might buy it because already they've been banned. They've been put in the thing. They can't, and many Pakistanis can't enter USA hereafter.
Oh,
That ban is coming up, which is today New York Times has published that
okay.
if a person from Pakistan, they Trump is putting in a regime where there are a set of about 10 or 11 countries who are banned to travel from America.
Acha. Okay.
That is, I just saw it, sir, before coming here. There
So
are about
obviously
another,
there are things. There are things
uh,
coming in like
and
this.
about 14, 15 countries where, in which Pakistan is one of them, where, people can't go just like that. So, if you have to go to USA, you will be put through an extensive interview before you are allowed to go there.
Before you
Even for visa, for tourist visa and all that.
yeah,
Pakistan is
correct.
there. So I
Exactly.
suppose if all that happens, whether you like it or not, that problem will only increase.
Increase. That is true. That is true. Exactly. So, but what I am most concerned about is my own country. I'm concerned about India.
Let's come to that, sir.
Yeah, I'm
How
concerned
do you
about
see? How do you see? How do you think we need to react to this whole evolving
we
situation?
need first of all I won't publicly discuss the issue of the Indian stance on Balochistan, etc. I leave it to the government of India. It is their
Yeah, that's
purview.
okay.
They will do it the way they wish to, with the experts who will want to do it, right? My only thing is to how to secure ourselves, to make sure that the backlash and response, whatever happens, and it will happen, is not lethal enough. It's something that we can contain and ensure. Pakistan, we will have to continue issuing, I think, subtle warnings to say that this can go over the hump, and they should be very, very careful about it. I think you should just go back to 16th of December 2014. That time also we had issued certain, very, very back channel kind of warnings, etc. Back channel must continue. I think our back channel must open up and continue and keep advising that don't think that you can take the heat off from Balochistan simply by switching it over towards Kashmir or something like that. A lot of people are asking me this question in the last 2 3 days, whether it will be of advantage for India to open up on the line of control, etc. I said no, that's premature at the moment. Don't
That's
even think
premature.
about it. It's too
That is
premature.
waste of times.
Waste of
In
time.
fact,
Absolutely.
I'll put it the other way around. This is an opportunity for us to consolidate whatever gains we've had on
Absolutely.
Kashmir.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We should not activate anything
We
here.
should not act,
Keep it
and
that. Continue working on our stabilization of Jammu and Kashmir, etc. But secure ourselves outside Kashmir.
outside that, yeah,
Why?
that
Why I particularly say this copycat terrorism is what gets my vote. I would be very, very unhappy because something can happen and the government of Pakistan will wash its hands off and say, no, 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 we didn't do it. See the kind of organizations like PLA, etc. They are only doing it against you also, against India also. Something happens tomorrow on the Rajasthan border. Something happens on the Gujarat border. You don't know what kind of things can happen.
yeah,
Look at the international border in the Samba Kathua area, full of population in that area, a targeting of civil population. Something like that happens. You don't know what kind of a big act can be planned by your adversaries. So we should be circumspect about that. That's all I would advise.
right, sir. I thought we've had a terrific discussion today. Uh, we've gone completely off the book, and gone into areas which we normally don't go into. But having said that, sir, I'll take a few questions because I thought, uh, you know, first question: how does the next 5 years look for Balochistan, BLA, and Marang Baloch? Uh, I mean, this gives us a fair idea. I would say that, look, how do you visualize things happening from here internally? Because that will have a effect on us.
Yes, I would. You see, that's what I said right in the beginning. That to me, all the movements in Balochistan thus far looked transactional to the extent that a lot of effort had gone into it internationally over a period of time. They have their networks, they've got their financing, etc. They've got very good spokespeople. They have a good psychological warfare machinery which is going on. All this is necessary when you are conducting this kind of a separatist movement as such. I don't think that this is going to lead finally to a complete cleavage in the sense that Balochistan will be separated in 5 years, will be separated and become a part of become an independent country or something like that. We have not mentioned one thing in this discussion with Jan Shankar at all, and that is the fact that Balochistan extends into Sistan province in Iran.
Yeah,
And that's a very
and
important aspect. The Iranians, if this has to become a greater Baluchistan, the Iranians are the first who are going to object to it. And therefore, this is the one convergence between Iran and Pakistan as far as security is concerned. The aspect of Baluch separatism is it doesn't cut any of this thing with Iran at all.
yeah,
Therefore, I don't expect that a lot of activity will continue. A lot of violence may continue, right? The world may recognize it, but the world recognizes many such movements around the world, but it doesn't necessarily lead to a final successful cleavage as such. So my empathy and sympathy with Balochistan, but I don't think is going to lead to a final cleavage.
I agree with you, sir. And I'd like to add one more issue. A lot of Baluch people live in Sindh also. So
Yeah.
it's just not, so there's a bigger issue. And some people live in Afghanistan also. So Balochistan getting independence is, I think, a long way off. And I'd like to thank Sanjeev Gupta for joining Gunner Shot as a member. Uh, yeah, this is something. uh, How will Pakistanis manage logistics and communications in order to secure the vast geography of Balochistan?
I think
This
you've
is their
taken a
100
cue
million.
from you've taken a cue from what I was saying myself. In fact, you probably preceded me in
Uh,
your question, so I give you all the compliments for having thought about this. This is going to be a major issue. Now, a lot of people are talking about the railway from Katra to Baramulla.
mm,
You have to secure it, right? Now, similar thing here. You have to secure it. And they will have to and they will have to deploy a lot of to the moment you start deploying troops on protection of on logistics and communications, you become that much more vulnerable, right? So the Pakistan army is caught between the devil and the deep sea, actually, in this situation.
and in fact, I'll put this just conflate that with this. The are the Pakistanis and Chinese aware of this fact, and they must they exit Balochistan post is not the issue. The issue is this whole story is going to become very complicated for the Pakistanis and Chinese. Remember, Balochistan is more than one third of Pakistan, and there's no army which can defend that kind of an area, logistics and everything. It's going to be very
Absolutely.
very difficult, and it'll be interesting to see as to how things move. Uh, yeah, he's Jain says a very important mate, General Hasnain. I personally know of Iranians who fundamentally oppose the Baloch movement as it impacts the Iranian integrity. There's
Absolutely. Yeah.
no doubt about it at
That's
all.
right.
I'll take one more question, sir, and then let me see if there's any.
There's
Yeah,
a
I
nice
do.
comment. There's a good comment here, which I think I would like to definitely. It's by Himanshu Singh Kushwaha.
Sir.
I want to say one thing to General Hasnain, that to all of the respected people too, please don't go for platforms where any Pakistani is present. Just can you put up this? It is
I'll
here,
just come to that.
8
He's given a
890.
lot of comments. Uh, he's given a lot of comments. Let me see where this comment is. Oh, where he's given a lot of comments. So let me see.
I'll read it out for you. It's right in front of me.
Okay, sir.
It says, I want to say one thing to General Hasnain and to all other
It's coming.
respected people.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
please
want to say
don't
one
go join
thing.
platforms where any
Uh,
Pakistani is present. We recently heard that General Hasnain was in a show where I suppose he's talking about the Barkhadat show where I was with Chima,
Shima,
the,
or,
yeah, the Pakistani journalist. Uh, See, there are two ways of looking at this. There was a time when I also went on a show and I requested Barkhadat that I will speak only when the Pakistani has been taken out from the show. And she relented and she took out the Pakistani and then I spoke. That was one way of handling it. The second is allow the Pakistani to come into it. I always say, can Mr. Chima outspeak me on strategic affairs? I have my doubts on issues even of Balochistan or of Pakistan. Let me speak on it. Let's have an open debate, right? We can counter anything that any Pakistani can come up and talk about. It just shows what an open society we are. We are willing to come, we allow people to come speak on our channels, etc. And we are strong enough professionally, psychologically, confidence wise to be able to handle it. That's one way of it. The last way of looking at it is slightly opposite of this. That's your way of looking at it, and that is don't allow them to come and use your channels to project their point of view. That's also a very correct kind of a thing to say, that you are being taken for a ride because your channels have a far greater outreach, and because of that, the Pakistani voice is being heard somewhere else. Now, I've given you three different, analyses of the whole issue. it is all subject to the situation at that particular time, right? If you find that there is there's a person who doesn't really know too much, it's okay, let him come and speak on a show, etc., right? But largely, yes, I do agree with you. When the beginning of a problem, when it takes place, allowing your channels to become the mouthpieces for information to be given out by aliens, by Pakistanis, etc., may not be the best of options at that particular time.
Yeah, I let me add something else, sir. What people need to realize is whether you like it or not, Pakistan is your neighbor. You have to have some channel of communication going. You need to understand what's happening there. You need to understand a Pakistani viewpoint. Unless you understand the Pakistani viewpoint, you can't counter it internationally. That's the first part. Now, how do you know? A chap Pakistani who comes onto an Indian channel is a guy who's approved by the establishment. He will come and speak what the establishment line is. The moment you know what the establishment line is, then you know how to counter it. People have to understand this. This is a game which is going on. The second part of the story, when you go and talk with that fellow, like General Hasnain and I are talking side by side, if just think if General Hasnain was a Pakistani, everyone in Pakistan will want to know what was spoken, what he spoke, and what was the reply from India. And if you can make your point of view very cogently, which we can today, uh, you are giving it's part of our influence ops into Pakistan.
Absolutely.
Okay, everyone knows that Chima fellow is from ISI. I mean, everyone knows that it's an open secret for all of us. And so he's got a following within Pakistan to understand. Even Pakistanis want to know what their own stance is. Whereas in India, we don't have that problem. All of us speak, under the tricolor, we speak one language. Someone might speak in Hindi, someone might speak in English, but the fundamental story is the same. But not in Pakistan. Pakistan, you see a duality of voices. And you should know what other fellow is speaking. You must know. And knowing the enemy and the way he thinks is part of the game for any Fauji. So I mean, completely in sync with what General Hasnain says. There is no way we can, ignore them. So anything else you would like to add, we'll
I
add.
would,
So
I
otherwise,
would only, I would only like to end on a note of trying to make our own people understand one aspect. Military professionals, most of us, and Shankar, myself, we follow an approach called maneuver approach, right? It's a maneuver, not a transactional attritionist approach. Attritionist transactional approach is what comes to the mind first, immediately take it on. That is, why allow a Pakistani to come on my channel? Now I look at it, why not?
why not?
And then look at the benefits of it for yourself. I look around the problem 360 degrees. This is a issue which in India I find a lot of young people, a lot of people who like to jump to a conclusion, to jump to an idea immediately and not see it through. Most of us military professionals, you'll find us as senior ranks, are maneuver specialists. People who like to see through an whole issue before answering or before responding.
And I'll just close this entire thing, by saying what the Duke of Wellington once said. You need to know what's on the other side of the hill. Right? That's a very important thing. So I'd like to thank you immensely for this freewheeling talk which we've had in this discussion we've had. I think a lot of issues have come up, and I'd also like to thank all the audience for having given your comments and your questions. I know this is a hot topic, and I'm going to continue this discussion next week also, because this is something which not only concerns Pakistan, it concerns us also. And there are repercussions of this whole story. I've already done a full length video on Baluchistan, giving its history and the initial analysis, all that. Have a look. We'll continue with this thing. And I'd like to thank all of you for your comments, which I find are quite erudite and balanced. Uh, Thank you, sir. Good evening, and Jai
Thank
Hind
you
to
very
all of
much.
you, and
I
Jai
will
Hind to everyone.
request, John Shankar, I will request our audience complete, all our viewers, that if they have liked the show, then they must try and distribute the link to as many people as possible. I
As
give
many
it to
people as
800
possible.
people myself, right? So a lot of people will see it. I'm sure they'll feel better. They'll better informed by, if nothing else. Thank you very much, and God bless. Jai
Thank you,
Hind.
sir. Thank you, sir. Jai Hind, sir.